So welcome. This is April and another version of Focus Friday. Woo! So you got me, Walter Bringle, that I've been here for a while. So hopefully I'm not a stranger to you guys. We got Mark and Renee, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Go ahead, Renee.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for letting me join Focus Fridays. I really appreciate it. It's always had a great cast of people, and I'm glad to be part of it. I'm on the support side, the goal team as a technical architect. Many of you probably know me from the past, from Summit past, right? So I'm going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart today, relational efficiencies. But I'm just glad to be here. I'll hand it off to Mark.
Yes, and thank you. It's a pleasure to present today. My name is Mark Nesson. I probably know most of you out there. I'm chartered with pretty much new products, WebFOCUS CE, as well as the Open Data Hub for mainframe, as well as, heavy tech support, performance, etc. So again, it's my pleasure to be here today, and hopefully we can show you what we can offer you. Thank you.
All right, and welcome. I'm glad you guys can chip in. And now I'm going to let Hannah take over and talk about the mini summits.
Yes, thank you, Walter. So as many, hopefully all of you guys know, we are doing the IBI Summit Roadshow this year. It's been very exciting. I was actually at the first event, so was Mark Nesson. We had a great time getting to connect with a lot of our customers in the greater Boston area. And now that we're coming into May, we are ready for our second summit event. So these are your opportunity to be able to join us for hands-on training, expert room time, breakout sessions, like whatever new features you've seen in the product that you're wanting to learn more about. This is your opportunity to get that one-on-one input on your deployment in person, to figure out how you can use those new features to better your business. Also, you'll be able to just learn general WebFOCUS and IBI tips and tricks. Walter Bringle is going to be leading a phenomenal session on mainframe and focus language, which is going to be great. I see that shout out, Brad, for Tallahassee, Florida. I am a Tallahassee greater area native, and I love that area. This go around, I don't know that we're going to be in Tallahassee, but you definitely could take that airplane up to Washington, D.C. and meet us at the Arlington show on May 14th. We also will be in Chicago on August 6th, and we'll be in New York City on October 8th. So if you're looking for a fun place to have a business trip, look at DC, look at Arlington, look at Arlington, look at Chicago, look at New York City. We will be there this year. We hope that you can join us at one of those events. I have a really quick summary video that I'd love to show you guys quickly. Let me get this loaded up. Oh, I was going to say, we had a good time at this event, and I really hope that you're able to join us for the Arlington event. As for all of our events, you can register for them at ibi.com/events. You'll see that there's a tab for our virtual events and for our in-person events. Go ahead, click on that in-person events tab and register for our Arlington event. Registration for Chicago and New York City will happen probably later this summer. As we get closer to those events, it'll open up, and keep posted for that happening in the meantime. So thank you, Walter. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Renee. And I hope you guys have a great Focus Friday session. Any questions? Cool. Well, I'm going to hop off and let you guys have your session. See you guys later.
See you in a little bit.
Bye.
There we go. So we're going to have Renee kick it off with relational efficiencies.
Sounds good. All right, let me share my screen. So relational efficiencies is today's presentation, right? And we'll go through the confidentiality slides and everything and get to the agenda. So relational efficiencies, I've talked about this over the years and everything, and we've come a long way in WebFOCUS in terms of our relational data adapters, but it's always a good topic to revisit and go over some of the things that are available and some of the things to be aware of, especially with legacy code that's still sitting out there potentially that you might need to take a look at or hasn't been looked at, and it seems to be behaving and performing well. But when you take a closer look, maybe there's something you could have done to tweak it. So hopefully I'll give you just some ideas of information that's out there and available to you based on your release level. And I am talking it from the WebFOCUS perspective, but some of these things are on the side as well, of course. So we're going to talk about an overview and discuss some tracing options, some join considerations. I'm not going to go into all the join basics and everything, but just two things that I think that are very important to be aware of. We'll talk about DB expression function, and for that, it's one of my favorite functions in terms of relational efficiencies to be aware of. And then 9.3, I'm actually put a little tidbit in there, a slide for the 9.3 enhancements, and actually show you an example of how we have enhanced the product, and particularly like with DT part function call. So let's proceed. So relational optimization overview. Adaptive processing is all about joins, sorting, and aggregation, and passing off as much of that as possible to the RDBMS, right? And why do you want to do that? I mean, it's pretty obvious and straightforward, right? You want to pass that off to be as efficient as possible, passing off as much to the database and let the database do the processing. Well, if it comes back to WebFOCUS, the answer set is a lot smaller and what we have to process and much more efficient all the way around. So we always try to optimize that. And like I said, as a general rule now, that's pretty much the case. And maybe not in old legacy releases, but now it's pretty standard. But being aware of that the adaptive processing is to try to pass those joins, which typically in a relational world, you're going to have joins of tables. The joins could be, you know, a dynamic join with the join command. It could be within a cluster, within a synonym. However the join is taking place, if there's sorting, usually there is sorting, and then aggregation at that next level if it's applicable to the request, which it usually is. So what else do we want to look at? Well, projection and selection. Regardless of your optimization setting, so let's say for some reason you decide to turn optimization off. Well, you turn it off, you really won't want to do that because that's saying to WebFOCUS, hey, I want you to handle, I'm going to get the basic data set back, and you're going to handle all the joining, sorting, and aggregation of that answer sets from those tables that I bring back. But regardless of your optimization setting, projection and selection, we always try to optimize it. So what is projection? Projection is the columns that we need to satisfy the request. And that can be explicit, you reference them explicitly in the request, or implicitly, such as within join or define fields. We'll never issue a select asterisk. We'll always actually explicitly request columns. And you can think of a synonym really as a view of your data, right? In fact, you know, if you're dealing with date fields, sometimes you can have that same alias column, which is the relational column on the adaptive side for the table, versus the field name could be different, but maybe the usage you can manipulate and have different versions of the date available to you with the same field. You don't have to worry about doing necessarily a define or a compute. Something to be aware of. And selection, we'll always try to pass whatever if or where criteria you might have as part of that request as appropriate. So one thing I like to talk about is you might not be aware of the fact that in WebFOCUS, there's actually a SQL optimization report. This has been around for a while, but I find that customers aren't always aware of it, and it's always specific to your release level. So if you're in WebFOCUS, you can click the little plus icon and select Get Data, as you see there. Or that's if you're in workspaces, or if you're in the application directories, you can click the Get Data button that you see there. And once you have that up, you'll see this little dialog come up, and at the very bottom, I should have put just some animation there. You want to click the Information and Diagnostics link. Click that, and then you'll get an option for the SQL optimization report. Another mechanism to get there, as you know, with WebFOCUS, sometimes there's multiple ways to get to the same place. You could do Get Data Advanced, and if you do that, it looks a little bit different. You'll get that little eclipse button if you click it. That's the Options button. And if you click that, you'll get a drop down that allows you to select the SQL optimization report. So any of those mechanisms to get to the same place, you'll see something like this if you have get data. It'll look like a window with that left-hand menu option, that report with the little button all the way at the bottom right-hand corner to show the report. Another version of what that page might look like is you can see the SQL optimization report from the Get Data Advanced, what it might look like. So you see something on the left. It's a little bit different, but you'll see that same report option in the bottom right corner, right? And so let's take a closer look at it. So if I decide I want to show the complete adapter list just to see, because that report requires that you pick a subcategory of the adapters. There's the ones that are primary, ones that are frequently used by a lot of customers. They're category 1, and then ones that are category 2 and 3. This report at the top will give you that list. So I just wanted to highlight and showcase it. There's some other things over there that might be nice. I don't mention it in this presentation to show you screenshots, but you could look at data types. If you pick data types and you pick your adapter that you want to look at, it'll actually show you what the native data type is and what the usage in actual would be in the synonym, the direct file description for that. Is SQL APT, automatic pass-through status for fields like for subroutines, functions, EBS and everything. You take a look at that. And if you scroll down to the very bottom of that, it actually tells you what the meanings of different options are, like, pass it as is. If we just pass it the way it's coded, we can convert it to some DBMS specific or focus specific if we have to handle, meaning WebFOCUS handles it. And you can take a closer look at that. But again, SQL optimization report is what I wanted to concentrate on. Once you see the complete adapter list and you know what your subcategory, what your category is, you can then see in the upper right-hand corner, I just have a little version of the report there that I pulled in, and I selected the adapter subcategory as 1. And then I picked, select the function category, aggregate operation. There's a bunch of different options in the dropdown. I didn't do any of the check boxes, but I will show you in a moment selecting that. And then you can see the SQL optimization report where you can see where things are, yes, they're optimized, and then the little dashes if they're not. And you can go through that and take a closer look. But I wanted to show the next option, which, what if I picked 1 and I picked date, time, right? Dates are very popular function calls. And I clicked the show key parameter. What I love about that is it'll take the function call, and if there are key parameter values, it'll tell you specifically for each of those whether or not it's optimized or not. So I deliberately picked date, time for today's presentation, and I scroll down in the report to show the DT part function, and you can see the beginning of DT diff, right? And you can see integer and the different categories. That's a function type, but you can see the keywords, right? There's year, quarter, month, etc. Week. Notice week is one that has the dashes except for Oracle and everything. So you can tell right away that that's not one that's optimized. And I deliberately picked that for today's presentation just to point that out. But I think it's a great thing to be aware of. And again, these reports are specific to the release that you run them in. So they will change from release to release as enhancements, depending on what release level you might be at. So just like to make sure you're aware of that. So that's just kind of a real quick overview of some reporting options that you might not be aware of. Take a look if you're not aware of it, and see what's out there. It might be something that might pertain or be important for your situation. And again, if you're looking at legacy stuff, we're going to take a look at some things else that you might want to take a look at and review in terms of output. So we're talking about relational efficiency. Tracing is always the key. This is my standard trace slide that I like to keep. I've been using it for years. I give you a lot of information on it, but set trace on is the command. There's SQLDI, SQL call. You really don't have to worry about those components. But the SQL AGGR, that's your optimization messages. And there's the statement trace, which is your SQL only. So that's basically the select statement, how we translated your request in WebFOCUS into the native adapter. And then how you want it, the destination. Do you want it to a file, client, to the screen? And then you want to set trace user on, off, or to a trace name. And I give you, if you want to make trace user off is always a good idea. But we also have other options available to you. But I just wanted to show that there are some additional options, such as set trace stamp equal off to suppress the trace stamp if you want, maybe for copy paste purposes. There's trace wrap that you can do before it wraps, and X retrieval on or off. This is a key setting, one of my favorites. It's been in the product forever in the core language. You guys, I'm sure, know it. But it allows us to do the tracing. And so we'll still parse the synonym. We still look at the masters, the active files. We'll still parse everything. We parse the request, and we'll build everything. But just before we're going to send it over to the RDBMS for processing, we stop short if you say set X retrieval off. Why do that? Well, the advantage of doing something like that is to say, hey, I can, if my request is not optimized, I can do that and not hit the database. What if it takes a really long time for something to come back? I don't want to have to wait for that. So I can tweak my request, get it to the point where it looks, it is fully optimized. And then I could say, okay, now X retrieval on or remove that and see what output I get. And I'll know that I've already optimized it at that point. And again, I'm sure that there's still a lot of things out there in the code that customers might have that they think are operating at an efficient level, but when you go and look at it, maybe not. So these commands can be very useful. So I kind of just gave you a sample here of what those commands you could have in a little FocExec that you could dash include prior to your code, or you could have a, text editor procedure that you dash include this as one procedure and then dash include IBFS to your actual FocExec WebFOCUS procedure that's relational, that has your join, and just to see whether it's optimized or not. And notice again, set X retrieval off, and we're looking at the two components, SQL AGVR for the optimization messages and statement trace, that's the STM trace. So in Designer, and this is true for InfoAssist as well, if you're still using InfoAssist, certainly. But you can see that I'm in the hub and I'm on a request and I right click and I can click select run. And then I can select run with trace. And if I do that, the output that I'll have will look like a page, WebFOCUS page output. This might seem very similar if you've used App Studio and you used to have the message window, except we oriented it to a page. And I just highlight here that it is color coded, right? So the SQL AGVR component will be in yellow. If you see aggregation done, that's good. That means any joins, sorting, and aggregation, if they're part of the request, it's been completely optimized. And if you take a look, and I know it might be a little bit small here because I wanted to show you the whole page, the whole screen, but you can see there that it selects, product, but it's summing on revenue, and it's doing a left data join between the sales and products on the ID product field. And you can see the group by, order by on product category, doing everything. And I did it as a chart just to showcase a very simple chart for you to get the idea. Another thing is it's collapsible. So kind of like when you're in our video, you can close that message window and everything. It's like a WebFOCUS page. If you're creating pages for portals, it's a collapsible option too. So then I can collapse those messages if I want and just deal with my report as well. And we do give you the options on the top upper right-hand corner, to save the procedure, or you can take a PDF landscape portrait or export as an image as well. If you want that run with SQL traces option, you must have the op run SQL trace permission. So I kind of like to add this part in. If you do security effective policy and scroll down and make sure that run with SQL traces, if you hover it, you'll see user can run procedures to obtain SQL traces, op run SQL trace, and that is permitted. So just wanted to point that out, that that's a necessary if you don't happen to see it, something to take a look at to make sure that you have that permission as appropriate. So join considerations. So we talked about an overview, very quick overview, and we talked about tracing. So join considerations. Now, I can go into, like I said, all the details of the different types of joins, right? So again, dynamic join is the join command. You could have cluster joins within the master file description where you're joining the tables. You could have a virtual, right? A defined-based join. You could have recursive joins, joining to yourself, the one table to itself, or conditional, which are where-based joins, right? Any of those are applicable. But what I wanted to go through is what I thought were the two most important things to kind of discuss, and particularly thinking about it from a legacy perspective, I thought this might be useful. So to be aware in Designer, if you're in the data tab and I'm looking at a join, and I have here I joined WF Retail Sales to WF Retail Product outside of the scope of WF Retail Cluster Synonym or Retail Light. And I just did an inner join on these two. And you can see, if I go through, I highlight there that I have the join type as inner. And then if I look at the source code, I'll see the join has the inner keyword. That means this join will always be an inner join. This join means all the records that are in the host, the left side will match. I'll only see those that match with the cross-reference, the right-hand side, right? So that's always the case here with Designer, right? And then I'll just show you with left outer. So I have left outer here. And I'm not paying attention in terms of the data or anything. This is just Designer. And also, you'll notice here that I put the keyword for the join left out. That means this will always be a left outer join. Note that right above that circle where I note the join left outer in the source code, you'll see some about that in a moment. But that is important distinction, something to be aware of. And the tool does that automatically in terms of Designer. Adding that setting with a left outer join. Now, you also have right outer and full. I'm not going to go through those. But what I wanted to showcase, what's a little bit different, something to be aware of in terms of InfoAssist and App Studio, is that the join type might not be inner or left outer explicitly. We provided the option that you could have a default. I kind of clicked the drop down just so that you can see inner or left outer in InfoAssist when you edit the join. But if you leave it as default, you'll notice there when I look at the source code, it goes join and then right to the file, to the field in the file. It doesn't have the keyword inner or left out because I didn't explicitly pick that from the tool here in InfoAssist. And the same is true when I kind of cut off, you'll see the little image at the very bottom right-hand corner where I have unspecified. That's what it would look like in the App Studio side. I didn't point out there's multiple instances or single. That's where you get the two or the two all, two multiple, two unique, options for the join. People we always return it regardless of that. There are some other implications, but we won't go into that today. But what I wanted to be clear about is Designer actually does hard code what type of join you have. So you always know what you're getting for that join. With InfoAssist and App Studio, there was the default in InfoAssist or unspecified in App Studio that would say, I'm not saying whether it's going to be an inner or left outer. So how is that determined? Well, of course, the next slide is going to go into that. It's determined by the all command. So if all is off and you have an unspecified join, such as I showed with InfoAssist or App Studio, it's going to create an inner join. You'll only get the matching post and cross-reference records. But if it's on, if all is on, and I have a join where it doesn't say inner or left outer, left underscore outer, then you'll create a left outer join. So I put that big note in the bottom, right? If it's inner or left outer, it's explicitly coded in the join command or in the synonym, meaning like I have my CR join type in the synonym explicitly inner or left outer, then the all command is ignored. It has no place in it. It will always be that type of join no matter what. But if you have code that you're taking a look at and you're reviewing, all can play a part if it's an unspecified join type. So I just wanted to be clear. And just as a little tidbit, right, a little thing to mention, with WebFOCUS 9.3, we're allowing you to take InfoAssist procedures, right, and actually edit and bring them into Designer. And we will respect the fact that that join is unspecified if you do that conversion. Now, if you were to go into the data tab and you go into the join, you edit the join, then it's going to put that keyword in, which is something to be aware of. I like to point it out. And especially if you're looking at legacy code and how does it behave and the implications of it, I think understanding that the all commands impact when you have an unspecified join type is key in terms of the kind of output that you'll obtain. Another key command is set short path equals SQL. And just to go through it real quickly, here I'm showing that you have a left outer join. Now, these are two different tables. I did the WF Retail customer with some missing data to WF Retail 8. It's different from the prior one. It actually had some missing data in it. And I picked left outer. And remember, I stressed and I showed here, it does the join left outer. You can see I have set short path equals SQL here. That's automatically added to the designer. And notice the where clause is on a field that's on the cross-reference table, right? It's on the age, retail age, right? So in that scenario, short path is important because it says I want to get those missing records, even if they're in the host, because otherwise it'll convert it and say it'll only get those host records that match the cross-reference table if I have selection at the child level, right? So here with short path equals SQL, I can see I'm going to see those records. And notice that I did two different versions of the report where I set no data to NA. So you can see where the missing data on the left-hand side report with no data NA, you can see the missing is displayed as NA. So to show you what would happen if I left short path equal focus as the default, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a report, and you can see I got an empty report. So this setting is important. Focus is the default for it, but a lot of customers have set this globally, like an NS prop on their reporting server. And that's certainly valid and everything. But just in case you have something out there where it's not behaving as you would expect it to be, and it should be generating a left outer join, and it's not, look at set all, right? Because maybe the all setting is not in place and it's doing an inner versus a left outer. So that's one thing. And another thing is to take a look at set short path. You have set short path equals SQL if you're doing a left outer join, and you have selection at the child level. You can go into more depth on that, but we do an idea. Take a look at it. Now, we started a little bit late, but we're going to get some of the best stuff, and that's DB expression function. So I'm just going to go through and say, what is this? This function allows you to have a native SQL expression entered exactly as you put it in with the parentheses. So it's literally DB underscore EXPR, open paren, your expression, close paren. And that's what you put in. And it'll pass it over. Now, any field references that you have from your request must be within double quotes, or the defined field would have a with clause on it. Designer doesn't do the with clause, so you must put the field names within double quotes. I'm going to show you something very important in a moment about that. It has to be obviously a relational data source. The syntax is not validated by WebFOCUS, right? Because it's on the native RDBMS side. We ship it in as part of the packaging of that request that we translated, but the DB expression is sent as is. So other than us with the field reference. And so it's not validated on our part. So the assumption is that you're going to ensure that that's validated and that's a valid expression. Otherwise, obviously, it won't work. And then it returns a single value per request, record, and it's inline, meaning you can't reference another file within it. The code needs to actually be coded within that DB expression call. So let me just show you DT part, right? That's a function call to obtain an integer value portion of a date. And here I have a designer screenshot where I have the edit calculation where I'm calling the DT part function with delivery date is in double quotes, and I'm pulling the year component for that. And when I do that, I'm also showing you the source code, because you guys are coders out there, and I am too. I want to see source code. I'm seeing how that function call is actually within the defined field. And you can see the DT part with the year argument. And then here's the output that I ran with SQL Trace, and you can see aggregation done. So it was optimized, and you can see the DT part with the year parameter being passed, and you can see the output down there with the year of 2020. Good so far, and that makes sense, right? When we looked at that SQL optimization report, year was an optimized option. Well, let's take a look at the same thing, but now I created another defined field. I could have did this as a compute, and it would be different behavior, right? It could pass over because that's after aggregation and everything, but we're doing it as a define. And we're doing the DT part, delivery date, but with the week component. Remember, this is not translating. I'm using SQL Server here as the native database. And just to show it to you from the source code perspective, right, I have year, but I also have week as well, right? So week is part of the request. It's another sort field, but it didn't have to be a sort field, but I added it as such. But now you're going to see when we run that, our optimization messages saying it's not done, it wasn't aggregated for the following reason. So we're going to bring more data back and we're going to have to aggregate it. We don't want to have to do that. So what we could do in this case is I could use DB underscore expression, and I'm calling the DT part SQL function call, passing week, or it could be ISO underscore week. And notice delivery date. This is the thing I want to point out. If you're using Designer and you're going to use the DB underscore expression function call, delivery date will have double quotes around it anyway. If you dragged it in and everything, put double quotes around that. So you can see you have two sets of double quotes there. That's necessary. The one set is just for the field. The other out of DB double quotes is for the DB underscore expression. Remember, all field name references must have double quotes around them unless you're using a with clause. If you're not, we don't have the ability on the with clause here for the define through Designer. You could hard code it, of course, but the whole point is to utilize the tool. So just put double quotes around it. That's why I like validating this. So I'm just showing you in here. I show from the source code what that created. So you still just see one here, but it is within double quotes. Okay, and then if I run this, you can see that I have aggregation done. So it was optimized and it passed the function call the way I asked it. Now, whether or not that be exactly what I want, because you also have to take into account week first and everything, but I wanted to show that it was optimized. And you don't have to use it with the data functions. It can be used for any kind of snippet that you might require, or maybe something that we're not capable of doing. We can do a lot now with our function calls, and a lot of them are translatable. But again, just to be aware that that capability is there, and that's a great. We had something earlier for legacy SQL dot that can call a function. That's different, and that had limitations. This has a lot of flexibility, but again, it's depending on you coding a snippet of code SQL code to pass over. What I want to talk about is release 9.3, and we're at almost the very end here. But I'm excited. I'm including the slide that's part of what all the enhancements are for the reporting server in terms of relational piece of it. And I'm not going to go into this. You could take a look at it in more detail. But notice it said additional functions, SQL function calls like DT part, are passed to the data method over the part. And everything. I wanted to showcase that because I just showcased it. And by the way, my examples were run at a 9.3 release level. This example I'm going to show you is run in 9.3, right, with the enhancement. So at 9.2.3, right, DT part with the week wasn't translated, but I could use DB underscore expression. But now, here I'm going to take an example with DT part, and I added this. There's a new command in 9.3 where I could do a engine SQL MSS because I'm using SQL server set feet op, right, feature op, week first on. That uses op parameter, and then I set week first equal to 2 for the start of the week. And then here's my code, the DT part for the defined field. And you can see I'm calling the DT part function that exists in WebFOCUS with the week parameter, right, as the keyword, right, not year, it's week, I'm doing week. And then here I'm just showcasing that I'm referencing that field. And then, ta-da, it actually passed it. Now you're going to see aggregation done. You're going to also see, if you take a real close look at that SQL, and I gave you the whole list, the rest of it on the side there, but you can see that there's a lot to code to try to account for every option. And so that code is a little bit complicated, but you can see that the output on the bottom left-hand corner for the report, you can see that I got the delivery weeks 52 for those first two records, the way I had it for delivery year week, the way I wanted to. And it's actually done for me using the DT part function without having to use DB underscore expression as part of 9.3. So I know I threw out a lot of information out there. Hopefully there was something of use and that it was informative for everyone. And again, I want to thank everyone for letting me that this is my first foray into Focus Fridays, and hopefully next time the presentation slide issue will not be an issue. So I thank everyone, really. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. Great information. Renee, are you using a headset or?
No, I'm not.
So your microphone is on the laptop?
Yes.
All right, so I think that's why you're cutting in and out.
Oh, I was cutting in and out. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's why I asked about the sign. I use it all the time, and I usually don't have a problem. I apologize for that.
Yeah, my thinking is you might have like looked away or something, and then it sounded more echoey.
Oh, I'm sorry. about that. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. Was it really bad?
It was once in a while, but it was enough that people
Okay.
made comments in the chat.
I apologize, guys. You know, I really do. I'm sorry about that. I do a lot of presentations, and that's why I usually check it in the beginning. And usually, if it's okay in the beginning, it's a positive. So, all right,
Yeah, that's why I was just wondering if maybe you looked away or something that
move a
you
little bit.
weren't talking
So,
directly to the microphone. I don't know.
okay, all right. Sorry.
All
Any
right. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, Renee, can you start from the beginning again? I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, guys. There's always Murphy's Law is full effect today. It's Friday, so.
All right, I don't see any questions. Again, thanks for that great information. And now we're gonna let Mark go. And
All
Mark,
right.
how long do you need?
Probably a couple days, Walt. No, probably about
30
what do I
minutes?
have? Basically tell me and I'll fit it in.
I could, you can have like 40, no, not 45, maybe half an hour.
That's fine. I'll fit it in. Yeah.
Okay,
All right. So
my
I'll
stuff
just
should be
share my
quick.
screen, Walter.
Yeah, your turn.
Let me know when you see me, guys. Everybody can see me.
Yep, we see your busy desktop.
All right. Well, it's a busy guy, busy desktop. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for all attending. Today, I'm excited to talk about Usage Monitor. And Usage Monitor is platform agnostic, just like all the WebFOCUS. It could run on any platform for whatever you want to do. So a number of our customers today, everybody wants metrics, right? Management wants metrics. Who's signing in? Who's doing this? What is the performance of this? Can you tell me what that query was that ran? Can you show me the query? Can you show me this? Can you show me that? As a matter of fact, I'm going to show everything today running in containers. So WebFOCUS running in containers, right? So I'm on the bleeding edge here. It could run also on-prem, your regular installs. And again, like I'm going to show, it's running in a container. All right, so I'm going to log in. And let me log in. And I think I put some cool stuff together to show you. And by the way, Usage Monitor comes with WebFOCUS 9.x. It's in the samples directory. I provide the change management package there. But again, you have to do some configuration if you want it running. If you have the TIPCO Golden license, you get to use this for whatever you want to use it. A number of customers call me all the time. Hey, Mark, hey, bro, let me show you this, what I did. Can you add that to the Usage Monitor? So one customer sent me something I like so much, I'll show you what he added today, and we put it in Usage Monitor. So it's all about metrics and performance. You watch TV quite a bit, and you see the guy selling insurance. He says we got the 3 Ps. Price, price, price. Well, my 3 Ps are performance, performance, performance. So it's kind of going to piggyback a little bit on what Renee did. So I'm going to show you some magic, what we can do. If you want the code later, it's for sale for a nickel, and I'll send it to you. So we're going to log in right off the bat, and we're going to see Usage Monitor has a live visualization and a history. We're going to look at live. That means running real time. As you run requests, customers want to see what's running. They might have these dashboards running all the time and refreshing every 2 to 3 minutes. They want snapshots, what's going on, whenever they want to see. So let's log in here, and we're going to run live visualizations. And all this is running in containers. And look at the speed. Everything is running in containers, and that may be another session at some time. If Walter Brangle still wants me after this, I could show that. So we're going to look at this, and you can see that right off the bat, I'm looking performance by date. So I'm looking at 4/26/24. I can go here. These are the IDs that log in. I logged in with secret and then PTH secret. If we go right to performance by date and we take a quick peek, we can see that the server time was only 41 seconds. That means the WebFOCUS reporting server. We can see how many requests were run. We can see how much CPU time. We can see DBMS time. And then we can see the elapsed time or the duration. Very, very important that these metrics are available to you today if you're using Resource Analyzer as well as We're going to go to monitor 2 for a minute, and I'm going to show you how when I run it live, what you can see. Over here, this is your system right now that we're looking at. Notice it shows me the ID, run request, where they are, run request by date, 432 so far. I can also go in and I can filter by time. I can filter by UID, etc. Right? And then we have another usage monitor dashboard that you can slice and dice the data, and I call this Live 3. So we can go over here. I'm just moving mine around. We can look at the performance and run. What's pretty cool about Live Monitor 2 is you can look at the requests that were running by the ID. How many requests were run, the CPU time, the database time, the reporting server time, the average response, the medium response, the maximum response, and the mode response. So some customer asked for the mode response, and I put it in. Part of this, if you go back to the hub, we can go to the other part of this. Again, this is reading live data, and I'll show you what I mean. Again, the cool thing, it comes bundled with WebFOCUS now. So you don't have to say, Mark, do I need anything special? How much more is it going to cost me? If you got the all-you-can-eat license from IBI, you could take advantage of this. Let's click on performance for a minute. Notice that it shows you the ID coming in, the average response, the server time, DBMS, and CPU. There's also the ability to keep track in a blog. So let's say I say, hey, Walter Brangle, take a look at this. Full performance here, whatever I may have, or somebody else in your environment, you want somebody else to look at the metrics. A number of customers that are using this today hired interns to look at this data and regurgitate to them exactly what they wanted to see. So we can go in here by server, by time. This is the time of the day that I'm running this. Okay? And you can see by time what we have. Again, all types of different reports and metrics that you have. We can go to user, we can go to system, we can go to snapshot, and most recently I added a chargeback analysis. And we're going to show you something when I run something real to see. So customers said, hey, Mark, can you give me a chargeback? So let's say you've got all types of people using WebFOCUS, or let's say different departments, whatever it may be. If you want to facilitate some type of chargeback, who's using what is a pretty good metrics to have. Who's using this portal? Who's using that portal? Who's doing whatever? So let's go in and let's run something that's going to make a difference. So what I did is I built the bro scripts, right? What is the bro scripts? Well, let's talk about it. We're going to do a session on these scripting at another time, but let me just show you what I've got. I'm going to edit the script. This is very powerful, right? This script is going to simulate users to your environment running some kind of portal or whatever you want to run. Notice in here, I have thread 1, and it runs many things. And then thread 2 through 6 is a 5 user. The first one I'm simulating is 1 user, thread 1. The next one I kick off is going to be 2 through 6, and then another one, 10 users, 7 through 16. Don't worry about what you're seeing in front of you. Again, if Walter Brangle and you request a session, I'll give you a session on what to do.
Mark,
so let's go back. Yes.
there's a question.
Yes.
How much overhead does Usage Monitor use compared to Resource Analyzer?
Okay. Let's talk about that for a minute. So the question was, how much resources does it use compared to Analyzer? So Analyzer turned on should be negligible, although I'm working with a couple of customers on an older release, and they're seeing about a 30% overhead. In the new releases, it's like 2%. I've tested that. I've had customers test it for me with 80,000 users with minimal overhead. So I'm debugging and looking at some of the customers that have an older release, but I really need them to go to a newer release. So once it's turned on, Usage Monitor can run from a different platform or the same. Right now, I'm running it in the same Kubernetes environment. I'm just showing you what I'm running, but you could run it from somewhere else. Again, the overhead is negligible. If you're going against history and you're looking for a year's worth of data, it'll be an additional overhead. So depending on what you want to do, give me a shout. We can talk about it and go through it.
So Mark,
Yes.
am I correct that the Usage Monitor is basically just reporting off of existing data, where the Resource Analyzer is actually collecting as you go?
That is absolutely correct, Walter. Perfect. Yes. So this the way I architected this is it reads the RML data file that gets written, and then we read that file as input to this. And again, we can do an additional session, Walter, if people really want to get into it. But let's start with this. Let's go here and let's close this. I'm going to go here and say start. So what I'm doing, I'm showing you and simulating people using this real time. So this script is going to run, it's going to use 3 users. User 1, user 5, and user 10. The reason I call them user 1, 5, and 10 is user 1 is going to run 7 requests. User 5 is going to run 35 requests, and user 10 is going to run 70. So I'm going to kick this off. Let's kick it off. And you can see that first one is connecting up, just connecting to the mid-tier to log in. Again, everything running on the same box. Notice here, for the audience out there that's familiar with the load simulator, now I show what server it's going to. There's a lot of bells and whistles that have changed in 9.3. Notice here, when this simulator runs, it's telling me database time and server time. Database time must mean what? I'm going against some relational database to get the numbers back. So if you looked at this real quick, you can look at it and you could articulate already where the time's being spent. Is it in the database or the server? So by just looking at the output that we have in front of us, you guys take a guess where it's going. Are we spending more time in the database or the server? So everybody should have a theory based on what they're seeing so far. So it's still running, right? And we ran a total of 10, 15, 16 times 7 requests. So when we say one user is really running a portal with 7 different requests on it. Some reports, some graphs, etc. So let this finish. It's going to come to an end. And it ran in 105 seconds. That's the elapsed time. It ran 144 requests against the server. Now, if we look here, look at the statistics I show you. The average database, the maximum, the server, and the maximum. So everybody in the audience, where's the time being spent? In the server? No, Mark. It's being spent in the database. More time is being spent in the database. Let's go look at our now to see if we can ascertain what's that's doing. So we're going to go back here. I'm going to refresh. We'll go back to live 1, live 2. And the users I said, remember, user 1, user 5, and user 10. Oh, wait a minute. Bro, this is great. I see the user. User 1 logged in, right? Right there. User 5, and then user 10. Now, let's look at some of the metrics on number 2. Well, let's go back here. The server time was 144 seconds. The database time was 1,651. Uh-oh, bro, you're spending a lot of time in that database. Help me fix that. That's another session. How do I say, is that a good thing or bad? Well, your queries that are written are spending all the time in the database for whatever reason. Look over here for a minute. Let me minimize this. Let's go down here. You can see user 10 ran 70 requests. The duration, 903. CPU time, database time, and server time. Look at what you have at your beck and call. Everybody should be using this. So when management comes up to you, or you as management say to somebody, what's going on here? How many users? What are they running? Let's go to part 2. Let's go here and let's refresh this. You can see the time, the response time, it went up. But that's normal. I got a lot of users. Let's look at the user here. As we're looking at this, and again, the amazing thing, everybody, this is running in containers, our newest technology. It's not running somewhere else. It's in the same pods that we're running. So let's go look at user 1, right? You can see 93 seconds, 453. So 93 times 5, it's somewhat linear. 93 times 10, very linear. But as we're in here, somebody from the audience says, hey, Mark, show me what user 1 ran. All right, if you really want to see it, I'll show you. Let's go over here. Auto links, let's go to live. It's going to go in, and real quick, you can see that user 1 spent 93 seconds in the database and 0.6 of a second on the server. Let's go look at user 1. Over here, today's 4/26. Go to the start hour. Let's go over here. Let's go look at one of these. That's the minute. These are the procedures that portal kicked off. Regional sales trend, discount by region, top 10, category sales. Let's go look at category sales. Voila. That's the query that ran. You know what people say to me? Bro, this is like a diamond in the rough. You're telling me I can see the query that ran? Absolutely. If it's very slow, you might want to have your DBA look at the query that was written. You can also see which adapter it used. And this one, in this case, used Postgres. Okay? Let's continue on. We can also go through and say, excuse me, what the system was. And I'm working on this piece here. You can go here and say, let's go look at what the system did. But let's not do it by hour. Let's do it by 5-minute interval. You can see where the peak is, the maximum session, the number of requests that came in, that's the user connections, and the ID. Not only that, remember I was telling you some generous guy said to me, hey, Mark, add this into UM. He wrote this piece, and I put it in, where you can hover and get all kinds of metrics. And most recently, I told you to charge back analysis. What if we wanted to go in? I got this parameter I got to apply. Let me go run the parameter. It's in usage monitor. I could set it in the edit as prof, but I didn't. Let's run this. Let's go back. Where was I? And refresh this. Look at these metrics for user one. You can see everything user one did. You can see the server charge. You give it the value that you want to charge by server. Notice that the first one was only $2. Look at the DBMS time, 26. User 5 was 132, 264. Look at the data that you have available to you. It's written all for you. You just have to install it and put it in. Let's go back. So we ran that. We saw what the user did. It's keeping track of it here. You can run one of these dashboards live. You can say, hey, show me, the one with the server time and have it refresh automatically. You can go here, whatever you want to do. There's a lot of things. All right, let's go back. Now, as I wrote this, I wanted to show you from the hub. Let it go in here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to go here. Close that. I'm going to go to, let me go right to portals. Give me a sec. I wrote this performance portal. Let's run it. Look at this portal. This executive page is actually running against Snowflake. This Snowflake database is a star schema with a fact table of 1 billion rows and my dimensions of about 100,000 rows. Look at the speed of this running in Snowflake. This is what everybody wants to get to. Does it necessarily have to be Snowflake? No. But I'm just wrote something against Snowflake to show you. We're going to go here now. And we're going to go back here. And we're going to run this dashboard. This dashboard that you see in front of you takes normally 7 to 10 minutes in a regular relational database. This is in Snowflake. Now, Renee, I'm going to see if I can top you. It's very hard to top Renee. Let's scroll down. How's that? That's the query, the SQL that gets generated running that query. Pretty cool, isn't it? So now they're saying, hey, Mark, prove to me the database you're going against has 1 billion rows or almost 1 billion rows. So I created a cluster, and I'm going to say sample data. There you go. The sales fact almost has 1 billion rows in it. Look at the performance here. Again, all captured through usage monitor going through the environment. let me leave it open for questions. I mean, I can go on for days, but I know we have another session to go. And let me stop sharing and let's go to the chat and talk about things. Walter, you want to tell me what's up, or are there any questions? Or
Yeah, so there was a question that came in
Yep.
on how to track the criteria used in a query that the user submitted. That they would
Right.
need Resource Analyzer, right?
Yes, yes. So the criteria mean the drop down to pick on this or pick that, I presume.
You like
Yes.
filters and
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that was it for there. What makes Snowflake so much faster than other storage solutions?
It's the 3 Ps: price, price, price. That's what it is, guys. Snowflake, Databricks is another one out there today, are very fast cloud-oriented databases. They run in the cloud. So that you're paying for that Snowflake or Databricks. One of the other things need to mention here is that when I loaded Snowflake and Databricks, I didn't show Databricks here. I loaded it. I didn't change one DBA parameter. I didn't change any indexing, 0. Load and go. And it was that quick. I have that same data in SQL Server. It will take 8 minutes to come back. And I tried to tune it. Maybe I'm not the best SQL Server tuner, but I spend too much time. Your time is too valuable, right? If you use one of the Snowflakes or Databricks, it's done, or Google BigQuery, one of those. I've tested all the DBMSs, and I have numbers that I will not release, how they all perform. I do have my favorites, but again, it required a lot of work and a lot of research to do this.
So the question is, how is Redshift?
Redshift is very good too. Very good. Yep. Again, I just happen to have one up for Snowflake right now. Redshift is very good too. But what you can do is you can run this yourself. You've got try it and see. I have one that I've written. I don't know if it works right now. I call it the adapter switch. And I switch from Postgres to Snowflake. One of the things IBI provides itself on is all you have to do usually is just change the master and access file. And you could do your own testing. You have the tools available to you. You run it and see. You could use the piece of code that I did to show you what the query was that was generated, right? Again, performance, performance, performance. I would say to you guys that I probably get at least 3 calls a day on performance, right? Mark, what could we do to get it better? Because I'll tell you why. When you're just running one user, what if you ran 50 or 100 at the same time? That's exponentially going to get slower. In certain databases today, it doesn't. So all I want you to know is we're available with all the database. Again, database agnostic. And I will tell you, a lot of people are testing these new databases. What else, guys?
So is usage monitoring able to monitor usage against master file clusters?
Yes. I did the master file cluster. When I went against Snowflake, that was a cluster. Yep.
Okay. Is hyperstage not needed if running straight against Snowflake?
That's a slippery slope. Let's talk about it. So hyperstage is a data store that we provide with WebFOCUS. It gives good performance, but it's not as good as Snowflake, guys. It's not. I'm not going to tell you it is. It isn't. Again, Snowflake, but again, the big P, price, price, price. Right? What are you paying for that performance? And again, that's a deal you have to work out with them. But just remember, WebFOCUS has all these adapters available to you. So as you look at it and test, and part of my testing, I did test Hyperstage against the other ones. Again, I'm not here to show which one was better or worse, but I did them all. And as a matter of fact, Steve Zirkov, that used to work on my team, me and him spent a lot of time together on this. What else can I offer?
Well, I think that's it for now. So thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me, Walter. You know, you had to kind of twist my arm a little bit to get me to do it, but now that I did it, really, guys, any questions you have, send to me. I'll be more than happy. Don't expect an answer right away, but I will tell you what we've got, what we can do. But just remember, maybe a show of hands, Walter. How many people have Usage Monitor installed and are using it?
All right, you heard them. Raise your hand if you're using Usage Monitor now. Here they come.
I'm not seeing any of that, bro.
You have to open the participants window.
Where do I see that, bro? I'm sorry.
Down at the bottom, the third icon. You got mute, stop video, and then participants.
Hold on, let me just see it real quick. Stop video.
You shouldn't stop the video. There's about 4 hands up now.
Okay, so only 4 of you are using Usage Monitor. This needs to be a must, guys. A must. If you care about performance and everything else, you need to see this.
All right. Let's move on. And
let's move on.
I'll do mine, and if there's any time if you want to show any of the extra stuff,
yeah,
you can do it after me.
Okay.
I'll probably be quick. All right. So Mark, Renee, if you can just monitor the questions as they come in case I don't see them. All right. I am going to talk about multiverb again. So we talked about multiverb. We talked about multi-verbless multiverb, aggregation, summaries. So this is basically just a review of everything that we've kind of talked about before. Everything in one place. So we have multi-view aggregation overview. So what is a multi-verb request? Well, before we get to multi-verb, let's talk about single verb. So that's where you have a single verb in your table request. Table file car, sum dealer cost end, 1 verb. Print dealer cost, again, 1 verb. Nothing magical there. If I now have sum dealer cost by country and I add another sum dealer cost by country by car, this is a double verb, and we're getting into the multi-verb realm. So notice the second column in the report is the aggregation by country, which is the upper verb, and then we have the one by car giving a little more detail. And you can just keep going down the level. So here's a triple. Notice when I build on the multiverb, I have to add to the already existing by structure. So the first one is by country. The second one then has to build on that, by country by car. The one after that has to build on that. Now, it doesn't have to build. It could be at the same level, but then you really didn't need to add an extra verb. You could have just put it at the same level. So here we have triple. Here's the output. So notice I have dealer cost 3 times. Does the sum verb object have to be the same for all of your verbs? No. I could have done sum dealer cost by country, sum retail cost by country by car, sum sales by country by car by model. Does not have to be the same. But if they are the same, notice I have now 3 columns for dealer cost. We have a setting called set duplicate col off, which will then stack those. So I only have 1 dealer cost column, but you have the different levels of the aggregation. So a country, you have the country aggregation, where you have the car value. Jaguar, we have the aggregation at the car level, and so on. Okay. That's multiverb. Multiverb less gives you the same answer set, but without having to have multiple verbs. You have 1 verb, but then you have these qualifiers. So in this case, we have a within clause. The within says, I want to aggregate within a sort field. We can aggregate against the entire population by saying within table. The table would be the keyword. So in our example where we have table file car, sum dealer cost by country, sum dealer cost by country by car, if I wanted to use within, I would rewrite it as sum dealer cost within country, dealer cost, because it's still one verb, but I have two verb objects, by country by car. When I get this output, I get the same data as I do from the multiverb, but it's in a different order because now your verb objects appear after your sort fields. So that's why dealer cost first column is the one within country, and then the dealer cost second is the one at the lowest sort level, so by country by car. So if you're doing this and you have the same column name, you probably want to use column headings. Okay, here's the triple. Here's the equivalent within code, sum dealer cost within country, dealer cost within car, dealer cost by country, by car, by model. And here's the output. Another thing to notice different between the multiverb and the within is on the first dealer cost, you get the value repeated on each line where you don't have that in the multiverb. But you can do by display on, and then that should make them look exactly the same, with the only difference being the order of the columns. Can you use multiverb in InfoAssist? That is a good question. I know multiverb. I know in App Studio you can, and I'm not sure if you can do an InfoAssist. I'm going to have to look that up.
I believe you can. I think there's a with option.
Yeah, so
yeah.
there should be something called sort groups, and
Right.
that's where you would create. So you would have to put your dealer cost, dealer cost, dealer cost, and then your by fields, and then you do sort groups, and then you identify which buys go with which objects. Okay. And the last thing that we found out we could do is partition agger. So it has the same functionality as within, and it will actually play better with SQL, which means you have a chance that it will optimize, because this seems to be a topic on optimization today, and it'll optimize and get sent over to the relational database engine. So back to our original multiverb, sum dealer cost by country, and then by country by car. Using a partition agger, we're doing a compute. So we're computing country dealer cost is going to equal the partition agger, partition aggregation. We've specified the field that we're aggregating. So in this case, it's going to be dealer cost. The second parameter is the by field that you're aggregating within. So I want to aggregate this within the country grouping. The B and E gives you control. I want to aggregate this from the beginning of the group to the end of the group. And how is my aggregation going to be done? I'm going to use a sum. I could do average, I could do min, max. Many of our prefix operators can be used here. And then I do as country dealer cost. Then the green dealer cost is just the one that's going to be at the car level. So when I run this, I get the results that I expect. Again, different order because I'm not doing multiverb. But the really powerful thing about the partition agger is I don't have to go from beginning to end. I can say, give me the average of the current row based on the previous row and the next row. Or I can say, give me the average of a row based on 2 rows above or 2 rows down. So you have a lot of flexibility of doing windowing. So it's pretty cool. And then lastly, we go back to the triple. So I have 2 computes using partition agger. And then our output looks like so. Now let me just jump back here. So partition agger runs against a group of data. So we create we create what we call the internal matrix, and then we do the aggregation based within the sort groups. A lot of you have used a thing called count distinct, and you've upgraded, and then all of a sudden count distinct stopped working. And you get a message saying that count distinct can only be done at the lowest aggregation level. And you were trying to do it above one with a within. And upon some research, we discovered that you could potentially get incorrect results, or results that you didn't expect them. So that's why they put the error in and don't allow you to do it. Currently, the workaround for that is to do a multi-table request. You get it in one table request to get your distinct values, and then you process it in a second table request. We are currently working on partition agger support for count distinct. So then you can use this and get the count distinct correct values within the grouping that you're looking for. So look for that coming. They're still working on it, so I know it's not in 9.3, but I would hopefully think it would be in 9.4. Okay, so now I've got questions. And let me go to the chat. Doug Lee, also known as Walter 3, says, don't forget that we can use sequence to rearrange the columns, and that's in the style sheet. Can you use multi-verb? And we already answered that. Okay. For those of you that run on a mainframe, I just want to say that starting next month on Focus Friday, I will be doing a session on mainframe specific topics. So the idea is to do it in the last half hour. So that way, if you're non-mainframe, you can come in for the first hour, get what you need as far as a WebFOCUS or coding perspective. But then if you are on the mainframe and want to attend that, you have the option of doing that. Or if you're non-focus and you're just a systems person on the mainframe and you want to know more about the how to do things focus-wise on the mainframe, you can just jump in half hour before. Next month, I'm going to start off with how to apply focus keys, because the focus product is licensed and you have to put keys in, especially if you change hardware or if your contract is being renewed. All right, that's all I have. If there's no more questions. Mark, do you want to?
No, I think I covered anything. I just want to know if there's any more questions. And I want to thank Walter, you and Renee, as always, for assisting me when I need assistance with the focus language. These two are the best. So I just want to acknowledge that here.
So here's an interesting question. I mentioned 9.4. I know, so I should have said the next version, because I think I've heard rumors that it just might jump to 10 at the next one. So how often do we come out with new versions? It's interesting, because we got 9.3, 9.4. That's all part of the 9 code base, or the 9 version. And so 3 and 4 are subversions, subcomponents of that. So usually if there's fixes and things, it'll go under the same main version of 9. But then if we come up with something completely better and newer, then we'll jump to the 10.
Yeah.
So how often? It just depends on what problems get reported and fixed. Depends on how we go to the next 9 point whatever, or if there's something major that we're putting in that we go to a 10. So I can't really say, but figure probably 6 months or so.
Yeah.
When I tried to use multiverb in IA, it will allow me to save the request when I create it in text. But when I open it back up in the tool, it will strip it out. So I don't think you can do it in IA. So if I'm understanding this correctly, Gina, you were able to do it in IA, I'm guessing with the tool, and then you saved it, but when you tried to reopen it, it stripped it out. If that's the case, I need to know because it shouldn't be. No, you did it in the code. Okay. So if you did it in the code and then when you reopened it, did you reopen it in the text editor or did you just double click it to reopen it? Because if you try to just double click it, it's going to try to parse it before it opens it. But if you just say right click and say open text, it shouldn't do that. So Renee, I think you use info assist more than I do. Does that sound right?
Yes, that sounds absolutely right. Yeah, if you go into the source code and you start adding there, and then you try to bring it back into the tool's probably going to wipe it out. There's a few subtleties where it might not, if it's a simple kind of code change. But other than that, yes, it will rewrite.
Okay, thank you. All right, next Focus Friday is in May, third week in May, third Friday. And hope to see you there. Thanks for coming now.
Yes.
And when you leave, there should be a survey. I'm a little leery and fearful that it's not going to have the right topics on it. Well, I don't know if it got changed in time from Walt and Mark. So it'll be interesting. But can you at least put on the survey general overview, what you thought, and any future topics that you want to hear about?
Sure. I think one of them, Walter, we're going to do is introduction to the load simulator tool. Right?
I believe so. Okay. May 17th, WebFOCUS 9.3 Designer, the next generation, and then you were going to talk about Resource Governor Resurrected.
Oh, yeah.
And then in June, you have Intro to the Load Simulator.
Okay, great. Thanks, Walter.
Are there any ETL enhancements? I don't know. Do you know, Mark?
There's a few. There's probably a page worth. I don't remember which ones specifically, but I know there's additional adapter support. So if you want to move from a different source to a target, that'll be there.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because I realized I just shared my little topics for next time. All right. It looks like we're at time, so I'm going.
One thing with the info assist. Let's say like you add dealer cost in twice in info assist by, country, by car, and everything like that. You have the ability, right click on the verb object dealer cost, more, and aggregate within by. That's how you get the within in info assist. So info assist, bring your verb, bring your sort fields in, right click on the verb object like dealer cost, go to the more option, aggregate within, and then by, and none will be the default, but then you can pick the sort field that you want. And that's how you'll get the within info assist. I'm sorry, I just wanted to answer that question.
And then that should be able to save and reopen easily.
And that will save because that's created through the tool. That's with info assist. It's just you have to do it on the verb and you have to go to more. You won't see it on the main menu. You have to go to the more option to see.
Thanks, Renee.
Thank you, everyone. Really, really appreciate it. It was a great experience, other than my sound and getting the presentation.
No, we're good. We're on time.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.